Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you how to use beat repeat. Really powerful tool, sometimes underused or underexplored because it can seem intimidating, but it doesn't have to be at all. It's pretty self-explanatory, and once you figure it out, it's a whole lot of fun to use on anything. In this tutorial I'm going to just be using drums, but you can use it on vocals, bass lines, leads, I mean just anything, and you can get some really interesting results. So I just got a basic setup here. Let me show you this drum beat. And that's without any beat repeat on there. If I turn beat repeat on, it's going to do kind of what you expect. It's taking it apart and it's repeating it. But you probably don't know exactly why it's repeating what. So let me explain how this works. So the interval is how often something's going to be affected, or how often the effect is going to be triggered. So if I'm doing it every bar, for example, then this is going to be triggered every bar. So if I'm playing this, and as you can hear, every single bar is doing this thing one time. So that's the interval. If I were to take it to quarter note, for example, then it's going to pretty much do it all the way through. So the next thing is offset. So offset basically is where it begins. So if it's at 0, it's going to start right at the beginning of the beat to do the effect. And as you move the offset, it's going to grab the tiny slice sample from a different location. So if I move this, it's grabbing the second 16th. And so forth. So that's what offset does. Now grid this is the resolution that it's going to repeat at. So right now it's repeating 16th notes. And if I change this to 32nd, so the grid is the resolution that it repeats at. And right underneath it, you have this no triplet button. So if you turn this on, then no matter what you put the grid at, it's not going to do a triplet. A 24th would be a triplet, and a 12th. Oh, let me go this way. 12th would be a triplet, and so forth. A 6th would be a triplet. And so forth. But I like leaving triplets on in a lot of cases just because it creates more interesting results. So the next parameter is variation. And variation is basically going to change the grid setting. So that means if I have the variations up high, then it's not always going to be at what the grid's set at. It's going to change quite a bit. So let me just set this at 16th note, and I'll put the variation all the way up high so you can kind of hear it do a lot of different things. And so forth. So the higher the variations, the less chance that it's going to play what the grid is on, and it's going to choose more, obviously, variations. The repeat button here at the top, this you could grab a beat from, or a section of your beat from anywhere, and the second you hit repeat, it's going to repeat that part as it's playing. So anywhere I hit, it's going to just keep repeating. And if I put it on variation, I'm not sure if it'll change or not. Yeah, so every time I turn the repeat on, it'll choose a different variation if the variation's on. So that's what repeat does. Now under here is pretty cool. So a variation, well, I think I need to tell you what gate is before I get into this trigger underneath. So the gate is how long the repeat's going to happen for. So it can happen from everything from 1/16 2/16, 3 or 4. So this is how many repeats there are, or actually the length of the repeat. So since we're on 16th notes, it's going to play the 16th note 4 times. If we were on 32nd notes, it's going to play the 32nd note 8 times, which still creates the length of 4 beats, or a quarter note. So the gate chooses the length of time. With that happening, I could set my variation up high. I could set my gate up. Let's just set the gate up to half a bar. And then under trigger, what I could do is I could set it to re-trigger a variation every quarter note, every 8th note, every 16th note, and it'll create some really interesting repeat stutters and things like that. So we'll just let's do 8th note here. Or I can even do 16th note. So with that, it does some really interesting variations. So on a 16th note, it's basically sending, since this gate is set to half a bar or 8/16, it's actually changing the variation 8 different times. So that can create some really interesting stutter effects. You know, if I set the grid down here, let's go to the fastest and the variation high and set this to 16th note. As you'll notice, the variations happen around the area that you set the grid at. So you'll get faster speed variations there, or if I set it down here on 32nd notes, then it's going to jump to the variations that are a little closer to that more often. Like so. So the next is the chance here. And chance is just what is the chance that the beat repeat is going to even be triggered. So if I put the chance at 0, it's just going to play the regular beat and nothing's going to happen. If I set it to 50%, then every bar, it's got a 50% chance of happening at this interval. If I set it to 8th note, then it's a 50% chance each 8th note that something's going to happen. I'll just keep it on bar for now. And so as you can see, sometimes it triggers and sometimes it doesn't. So chance is a pretty fun tool to play with as well. Next over we have pitch. I'm going to actually change this back to trigger just to, and I'll bring the variation back. So here we could change the pitch of what's being beat repeated. So I'm going to put chance up to 100%. So this pitch will drop all the way down up to an octave. Let's say 7 semitones. And here's the volume over here. I know I'm skipping ahead, but this is the volume of the effect. So you could actually have this lower, and when you're playing the regular beat, it doesn't sound quite so interrupting. And so forth. So that's what pitch does. Pitch decay actually does something more interesting, which basically creates like a pitch bend for the length of the gate. So this is like going to be a half bar pitch bend. And I'm going to offset this to something that's not a kick drum. Very cool effect. And if you set variations and set the bar interval, you can get some really interesting effects happening here. So that's the pitch decay, and we just covered the volume, so that's just the overall volume that the effect has. And then decay will actually create a decrease in volume over time. So if I set this gate to quarter note, it will last a quarter note, but it'll fade either more quickly or less quickly. I'll make the gate longer to make it more noticeable here, so I'm just going to make it a full bar here. And the decay, of course, will work whether the pitch is activated or not. So. And now up here, you've got mix, insert, and gate. And these are pretty simple. So basically, you've got the beat repeat on mix means that the original beat's going to play and the effect is going to play on top. Like so. Insert means that when the effect triggers, it's going to stop playing the original beat and then it'll come back up when the beat repeat stops being triggered, like so. So that is not mixing the two. Whenever the beat repeat is active, the drum beat stops playing for that particular amount of time. And then the gate is just the beat repeat effect on its own, and no beat is playing, so you're only hearing the affected part. So let's create some interesting setup here. So I'm going to set this to quarter note interval here. I'll keep the chance at 85%, sounds good. Set the gate for 8. Variation up high. Set the trigger to 16th, so that's just triggering many different grid selections. We'll play with the pitch decay, and I'll leave the pitch alone. And the filter should be pretty obvious. So the filter only affects the beat repeat effect part. It's not going to affect the filtering of the original drum loop or whatever part you're using. And let's go ahead and just play this. And if I hit insert, so that is beat repeat. So you could do really simple things and you can take it to extremes. I like the idea of using beat repeat for both purposes. It's also really a great tool to use for DJing and things like that. You could basically set things up for 1 bar. Now keep the decay down, keep the pitch and pitch decay down. Put the volume up to regular. I'm going to set the gate to 1 bar as well. Chance to 100%. And then I can put the grid to 1 bar. So now nothing's really going to happen here. Just need to turn variation down as well. So beat repeat is on right now, but it's not being affected because it's only being told that when you're triggered, just sample the bar and play it back. And since this part is only a bar long, it's just staying the same. So what you would do is you would set a controller knob to this grid, and then you could, a lot of times you'd want to set this to no triplet for DJing. And then anytime in a track or something, you could just when you got a song playing, obviously it has more impact. But yeah, so there's beat repeat for you, and hope you're able to explore and figure out even things that I haven't discovered with this. And it's a whole lot of fun, and I think you'll get a lot out of it.